This is the Yorkshire Businesswoman podcast, supporting, inspiring and promoting women in business.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Yorkshire Businesswoman podcast. I'm delighted today to be joined by Jowita Penkala, who is a mind mastery specialist and the pioneer of the Zenni Electrostimulation method in the UK. Hello Jowita.
Hello.
I know a little bit about what you do and how important health and well-being is in absolutely all aspects of your life, and you've subsequently turned it into a business by setting up Excellence Health. I want to learn more about it today, Jowita, so over to you.
That was a great introduction, Freda. Thank you so much for that.
I want to know how and when all of this started, because I know there is quite an impactful story behind it, Jowita, and I want you to talk me through that today for our viewers as well.
Thank you. So it started when I was 8 months old.
8 months, as in baby 8 months?
Correct. By the age of 10, I had 3 major surgeries. The first one was when I was 8 months old. The second one was when I was 9 years old. And the third one was when I was 10 years old. Doctors gave me 0 chance of surviving, and they were convinced of my imminent death.
What was that down to? What condition was that, Jowita?
I had problems with my intestine, and there was a rare condition that I suffered from, where small intestine is grabbed or blocked by the large one, and it starts rotting from inside. And it could have been solved with a small procedure, non-surgical procedure, but sadly I was misdiagnosed and eventually I needed a surgery.
Goodness.
So when I was 8 months old, I had to stay in hospital for 6 months. Obviously, I don't remember that.
It must have been so difficult for your parents.
It must have been, absolutely. But I survived against all odds at that time. But that because of the first problems when I was 8 months old. When I was 9 years old, I suffered from life-threatening adhesions on my intestine, which had to be resolved by surgery. Unfortunately, the doctor screwed up the surgery. And I didn't wake up for 3 days after the surgery. And again, I needed a lot of help in order to get through those problems, because instead of solving the problem, he made the problem even worse. So my parents were fighting again for my life, and eventually I was released from the hospital where they messed up. They didn't want to release me from there because they were afraid of a scandal. But fortunately, my parents managed to agree things with the hospital, and I was sent by helicopter to a different city, a better hospital, where they started taking care of me in order to obviously take me through the most rough patch and see whether I can survive or not. And again, it was a touch and go situation.
So by the age of 9, that was 2 major surgeries.
Correct.
2 almost near-death experiences. Correct. From what you've described.
Yes.
And obviously you have lived to tell the tale. Something in that part of your life's journey has inspired you to create what you do today. And I want you to talk me through that, Jowita.
So that wasn't yet the time when I had my third surgery when I was 10 years old, and everything for the first time went okay, went smoothly.
Was that for the intestine again?
Yes, again for the intestine. There was a phenomenal professor who operated on me. And just because of him, I was so inspired by his attitude, his expertise, his talent, that I wanted to become a surgeon just like him. But sadly, I didn't pursue the medical school because of not enough self-confidence and self-belief. But there was a turning point at hospital at that time when I was 10 years old, when the mother of another child came to visit her child, and she said something to my mom and to me, which obviously didn't make sense at all, but it was very intriguing. She said that we must think positively, not just on the conscious level, but also on the subconscious level.
That's interesting. How many years ago was that?
35 years ago.
35 years ago.
35 years ago. And that what actually was the little seed that was planted into my head that started changing my life forever.
Goodness.
So since then, I started thinking and researching searching for some more information in terms of what the subconscious mind means and how big impact it has on our lives. And eventually, I read Freud when I was 15 years old. Lots of things didn't make sense, but some did. And eventually I slowly started reprogramming my subconscious mind for good health.
Incredible.
And since then, my life has changed forever.
How old were you when you started? So 15 when you approached
Yes, 15
Freud?
Yes. And then probably when I was 17, 18, which was the time to obviously choose which
Make
direction to go in terms of my university. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to take this big leap of faith and study medicine. My health has improved by then drastically. But in terms of my self-belief and confidence, it wasn't quite ready for me to take this big responsibility of studying medicine. So I studied.
So you didn't necessarily want to go down the clinician route. You wanted more the kind of the holistic approach, which is, I suppose, it's reprogramming your mind, your mental health.
Yes.
And I think to a large degree that is 50%.
Absolutely,
of healing.
It is. Correct.
So talk our viewers through what that journey involved in terms of, whilst not a clinical subject to study, how was it viewed? I assuming that you were in Poland at the time?
Yes, I was. So those big major surgeries were completely, behind me at the time. But when I was 17 years old, I started suffering from some chronic health conditions, asthma and thyroid problems, which sadly, conventional medicine doesn't cure it or treat it. It just treats the symptoms. So I was constantly prescribed steroid creams for my asthma and for my thyroid, obviously ongoing consultations and some obviously medications to keep it in check. That was just to keep it in check rather than reversing the problem. And eventually I lost my one battle with my thyroid because I had to have half of it removed here in the UK, probably around 15 or 16 years ago.
So steroid treatment for your eczema, Jowita, was that something that you stayed on for a number of years, or was it something that cured the problem?
I did stay for a number of years because it was like a magic pill. I put some cream on my first eczema and then suddenly 7 days later it was completely gone. So it was a miracle for me. But at the time I wasn't very much aware of the holistic approach to health that we could take. But deep inside, after having other episodes of eczema, which was obviously quite debilitating.
So after the eczema had disappeared, you were almost like dependent on the steroid treatments.
Correct, because there were other eczemas appearing out of the blue on other parts of my body. And then eventually I thought something is not right here. It doesn't really, the steroids doesn't really solve the problem. They're just covering the symptoms of much bigger problem that perhaps is within my body.
An underlying condition.
Correct, an underlying condition. So eventually when I started searching online and talking to other people and smarter people, wiser, who have had some similar problems, they started directing me into my diet, what I eat, and the nutrition, and perhaps avoiding certain stuff within what I eat. And eventually, deep down in my heart, I had the sense of knowing that there is a solution to my health problems. I just haven't found them yet.
That's interesting. So intuitively, you knew.
Correct.
That it really is something that comes from within.
Correct.
And like I said earlier, there's a percentage of mind that governs our health and well-being.
Correct.
And then obviously I'm not discrediting medicine.
No, me
because
neither.
I think it's important to, follow
Correct.
the clinician
because of
as
them,
well.
I'm alive. I'm alive because of their help a few times. But of course, when it comes to chronic health conditions, I believe that there are better solutions where people can reverse the problem and tackle the root cause of the problem rather than just cover the symptoms and manage the symptoms.
That's so interesting. So from Poland, you moved to the UK.
Now there was an episode for 2.5 years where I used to live in America for a few, in Massachusetts, Cape Cod.
And were you managing your symptoms out there? How did that work?
Sometimes they were just completely gone and then suddenly they appeared again. So there wasn't any routine or any trend to it. So I was happy at the time when they were completely gone, but suddenly when they appeared again, that was quite again debilitating because it made me not sleep well. I was quite agitated, and yes, and I knew again that I need to search for something that can help me to reverse the problem or perhaps even cure it completely. So I did spend over 20 years of searching for a solution, trying different type of holistic treatments, from herbs to acupuncture.
What kind of herbs were you taking?
Oh, I don't remember. It was a mixture.
Was it Chinese herbs?
Chinese, yes, and they were prescribed by like a holistic doctor who was specialist in terms of mixing different herbs to solve some problems. And of course, it was a little bit better, but then again, after 6 or 8 months, the problem appeared again. So I knew I have to try something different. So my journey was very curvy, I would say. I had to go through lots of different solutions or treatments, try them out, see what works.
Well, kudos to you for sticking it out and single-mindedly combating. I suppose it was your journey and
yes,
it's something you had to navigate. Tell me more about what happened when you came to the UK and because again, another plot twist there.
Absolutely. There was I came to the UK with my husband in 2004 in November, literally straight away after living in America. I went back to Poland for 2 weeks. We got married there and we came here. So I haven't spent much time in Poland living there since I was 23. So now being here in the UK, 15 years ago, I unfortunately lost a battle when it comes to my thyroid problems. My thyroid was so overactive that it wasn't possible to live with those symptoms.
Is that Hashimoto's?
No, Hashimoto is underactive thyroid, and it's an autoimmune disease.
Okay.
I had the opposite. I had overactive thyroid when I had heart palpitations, high blood pressure at the time of those episodes, dizziness, difficulty breathing, muscle weakness in my throat. So it was hard to swallow or even drink something, not throughout the whole day, but in those moments, in those episodes when the attack came in. And it was happening 3-4 times during the day. So eventually I thought, I cannot live like this. And I had a great consultant in NHS who said that unfortunately I need to remove half of it in order to be able to live and not be at risk of having heart attack or stroke at any minute.
Goodness.
So thank God nothing happened to me. I didn't have any stroke or any heart attack. So half of my thyroid was removed just in time before anything bad could happen to me. And after that, I was fine for 15 years. My migraines disappeared. Everything kind of went to normal, but I was still battling with my asthma. And eventually, the solution came to me. And that was using the power of my mind. I know some people and some viewers may find it spooky and be in disbelief.
So was it through certain tools that you used, like guided meditation, for example? There are certain techniques that you deploy in order to talk yourself through various steps. Was that something that you studied?
I've studied it in my own time, Freda. So I don't have any qualification in it. It was just my passion. And eventually I know so much about the mind that I applied exactly the same techniques and tools that I teach my clients now to help myself with the thyroid problem.
At what point in this incredible journey that you've had, Jowita, did that switch go on for you to say, I've been through this and now I want to take my lessons and share them and support others with the same condition or going through the same thing, irrespective of what the condition is? But obviously chronic health is something that is an ongoing battle. At what point did that switch go on for you?
When I realized that I had only half of the thyroid left and I didn't want to have another operation and to completely eliminate it from my body, because I knew how important of an organ it is. And when I started meditating and doing guided visualization on myself, and a solution was presented to me, how I could save my thyroid, I thought I would be stupid not to try it on.
That's so interesting. When you say you visualized, what would you visualize when it came to your thyroid? What exactly were you imagining in your head for you to cure yourself?
So I had to go with what I'm teaching my clients, which is think about the impossible.
But what do you visualize? What are you seeing?
So I was seeing myself literally looking in the mirror, Freda, and seeing my neck completely flat because my thyroid was enlarged in size. So I was literally visualizing myself, seeing in the mirror, and seeing my neck completely flat, and that I have no symptoms. I can train, I can be active physically, and that the symptoms are completely gone, that I feel full of energy, smiling and going for an ultrasound on my thyroid and receiving a message and the news from the ultrasound consultant that your thyroid is completely healthy. That's what I was visualizing.
Amazing. And did you get that result?
Almost. Perhaps it's not completely healed yet. But a solution was presented to me after 6 months of visualizing the end goal. And that was when I was introduced to the Zenni Electrostimulation method.
I want to know more about this, and I'm sure our viewers do as well. Zenni Electromagnetic, what exactly is that? Is it a device? Is it a waves of stimulation? I want to know what it looks like and how it works.
So the Zenni Electrostimulation method, it's a device that is used for the treatment.
How did you come across it? So let's just backtrack as well. How did you come across that?
So after visualizing for 6 months, myself being completely healthy from the thyroid problem, I met a mother of my friend, and we started chatting about lots of silly things. And suddenly, I cannot even go and retract it back what we started talking about. And suddenly, we are talking about thyroid problems. And she said something to me, and she mentioned the name, the Zenni Electrostimulation method. And literally, Freda, during this time when she was saying those words, I had the most spooky experience in my body.
Really? Describe it.
So I felt like there was this big electrical current, but positive one, that entered my head through the crown of my head, went through along my spine, and dispersed to every single cell of my being.
And that was during the conversation.
And that was during the conversation. And that was almost like this enlightening moment, which said to me that this is the solution to my problems.
Incredible.
This method, the Zenni electrostimulation method. And I knew I have to pursue it. I knew I have to find out more about it before I made a call to the guy and before I made an appointment for my first visit back in Poland, in my country.
So talk us through that. How did that go?
So going there for my first treatment, almost 2.5 years ago now, again, I had terrible symptoms. I had irregular heartbeat non-stop. I was dizzy all the time, and I had difficulty breathing. And after the first session, electrostimulation session with the inventor of the treatment, 6 hours later, my breathing was much better. I wasn't as conscious of taking every single breath. And my heartbeat was much better, much more regular.
How does it work, Jowita? What exactly, again, if you talk me through
Sure.
the bite-size elements of how this actually works for somebody who has absolutely no idea what this electrostimulation is.
Of course.
Do you have to sit in a cubicle? What does it involve?
No, it's administered in a sitting position.
Okay.
Almost like you were, this treatment would suit you well now, sitting on this chair, Freda. So it's administered in a sitting position when they are pair of electrodes. Each of them is oversized business card size, and they are applied in different parts of the body. And through those electrodes, there are 2 different currents that are administered to our body.
Who decides on the current and the voltage?
So, of course, the inventor of the treatment, he invented the whole protocol, which is safe, non-invasive, and unique, in order not only to help with the symptoms, but to have a beneficial effect in terms of reversing the health problem and make people feel better.
So it sounds quite complex, this electrostimulation. How is it tweaked to target different conditions? From what you've told me and from what I know of electrostimulation, the frequencies are very much specific to specific conditions. How does that work, Jowita? How does it know that it's targeting your thyroid, your muscle weakness, your breathing? Who decides that?
It's the inventor who knows exactly how, obviously, the method works, and it's not managing symptoms, because the symptoms of irregular heartbeat and breathing came from not well functioning thyroid. Hence, the thyroid was only targeted during the treatment. And it sends, and he has different protocols that he has developed over 32 years ago in Australia, and he patented it for different type of health issues. So that depends on the tissue, on the organ, and that because of the different tissues within our body, he knows which current, whether it's diadynamic current or galvanic current, needs to be applied in order for the organ or for the whole body to get better.
That's interesting.
So he developed and he researched inside out to make sure that it's safe for the body, but it's enough energy that is received by the body through those electrodes in order for the body to work on it and repair itself.
Quite technical, really.
Yes, absolutely.
And how was that tested? Who were the initial recipients?
So the initial recipients were far away from the UK. They were in Australia.
In Australia, yeah.
And they are still doing fine.
Were they human recipients, or
yes,
were they
human recipients? And eventually, there were people with Parkinson's over there in Australia over 30 years ago that were getting better. Little kids with cerebral palsy,
really
getting better. People with asthma getting better, and so on and so forth.
Is it still seen as something that is a holistic treatment?
Correct.
Or do you think that it will or has even been incorporated into just general medical practice in the UK? Is that something that you foresee happening, or is it always going to be a fringe kind of treatment, that is seen as a possibility rather than a definitive a definitive answer to a medical problem?
I have a theory behind it. I think it's gonna stay, sadly, as a holistic medicine. However, I'm working on with certain government bodies here in the UK to have it validated so that perhaps it can be introduced into NHS. But that requires a lot of trials.
Yes, it does.
Robust trials, not necessarily for holistic application, but for specific chronic health conditions. So hopefully I can be successful in having those trials.
So this is your business now, Jowita.
Yes, it is.
You've actually started your own practice to administer the electrostimulation on your own clients. And again, from what I know and what I've learnt and friends who have been to see you, the feedback has been quite impressive. So you've actually set up your own practice.
Yes, I have. Since last year, since July. I was excited being trained by the inventor of the method himself. And then eventually I practiced in his clinic back in Poland for quite some time, because I wanted to make sure I'm very confident in doing those treatments on other people. And eventually I brought it here to the UK last year.
So you have your own device? Yeah.
Correct, yes.
Is it a big device? How does it look?
So the device, it's portable, it's mobile. It fits in within a cabin-sized suitcase. It is, the weight of it is around 3 kilograms. So I can travel.
It's pretty small.
Yeah, it's pretty small, and I can travel with it back to London, back to Leeds, and anywhere else. So it's quite easy in that sense.
And how do you find your clients, or do they find you?
Mostly they find me through recommendations, because obviously, as you can imagine, I started with people who are very close to me in my social circles that I have helped with certain chronic health conditions, even with my husband as well for some of his chronic health conditions. And he...
Give me an example without getting too personal.
Yeah.
We don't have to say what the condition is, but does it cure it completely, or is it an ongoing procedure?
Obviously, we need to be very careful with words like curing and healing when it comes to alternative medicine. I cannot make those claims because...
So is it managing, should we say?
Well, we should say managing or getting... helping people to make a change for the better. So it actually, this treatment can help make changes for the better for the clients.
What does that mean exactly when you say make changes for the better? Is it a lifestyle? Is it a holistic approach combined with the electrostimulation? So they have to, do a kind of a more 360 approach to how this works?
Not necessarily, although I usually suggest some lifestyle changes as well. But let's say with my thyroid, I didn't have to apply anything else. It was just the electrostimulation that was helping my thyroid to reverse in size and decrease in size and recover from, perhaps not completely yet, but recover from those health problems in my thyroid.
I remember you showed us some visuals when you did a talk for us at the Yorkshire Businesswoman, and there was a picture of your thyroid, and it looked angry and inflamed and enlarged.
Correct.
And then after post-treatment, it had shrunk significantly, exponentially actually, and it looked like a normal neck of a person without any thyroid conditions, and that was all down to the electrostimulation.
That's right. That and similar effects we have, or I have now, with people who live with Parkinson's for several years, who report to me that they have completely 50-60% or even more changes in terms of the Parkinson tremor. So it's less Parkinson tremor for a prolonged period of time now between sessions. So
do they take their medication as well alongside
They keep taking, of course. I'm not a doctor, so I cannot advise or recommend to people to take them or not to take them. It's best for people for my clients to be in touch and close contact with their GP or consultant. However, this could be a complementary treatment to whatever else they are doing currently. And eventually, as they feel better and get better, they can go back to their doctors and say, I would like to have my medication reviewed because I feel better and I'm getting better.
So other than the conditions you've just described with the thyroid and Parkinson's, are there any other, even minor conditions that people have? They don't have to be, I'm assuming it doesn't have to be a serious chronic health problem. Do you deal with other things as well? Because I know, being a mind coach as well, you kind of have other strings to your bow. Do you feel that comes into it as well?
So let me answer the two questions I think you had in what you've just said. So the electrostimulation can help with lots of other chronic health conditions from head to toes. So from anxiety, stress, problem sleeping, problem with eyes, even gingivitis, obviously thyroid problems, all the internal organs as well, and musculoskeletal problems like sciatica, joint pain, muscles pain, bulging disc.
Amazing.
And even looking at my shoes with bunions as well and spare. So there is a lot it can help with. It's perhaps easier to say what it doesn't help with, and it's multiple sclerosis. It unfortunately it cannot help with that.
So you must have case studies and
Correct.
testimonials. Just off the top of your head, how many people do you think you've treated over the course of your owning this electrostimulation device?
So since July last year, when my first client was my husband, I had probably over 30 people now.
30 people?
Yes. And obviously, I'm still working with them because it's not just one treatment that people have and then they straight away get better. We need to be realistic in terms of managing clients' expectations. And it's usually a series of treatments that they need to have in order to see long-term benefits of it.
And how long does a person expect to be in a session for? How long is a session of one of your treatments?
Usually it takes from an hour to 2 hours for the treatment, depending on the chronic health condition, or perhaps a series of chronic health conditions, because sometimes people come in and say, I have some arthritis or some joint pain in my wrists, but then it turns out that they also have them in their knees. Again, but it cannot be administered for longer than 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Interesting. And has it actually cured? Has there been any definitive cures? Have people come back and said, do you know what, Jowita, I don't think I need this any longer. It's actually gone away.
Absolutely. That's the case with this treatment. It's not something that people need to carry on for the rest of their lives. It's something that they have it done throughout the course of 12 months or 6 months, depending on the condition. Usually, on average, people need to have 12 sessions, maybe sometimes 15, or my case, I'm still doing this on my thyroid because it was a very big problem. But other than that, I would say 12 to 15 sessions is max, and then that's it.
You would think that the medical professionals would have sat up and taken notice. Are your patients, clients going back and reporting to their doctors that there is this incredible holistic treatment that works alongside their drugs? Is that how do you think this is going to evolve into, the mainstream medical services, I guess?
Perhaps they will be more open-minded in terms of what else is out there except just medications, and that it does really help people.
Is this something that you specifically want to do to bring it to the fore? For example, do you feel like you could go down to Whitehall and make a speech and talk to the politicians?
I would love to, yes, and that's what I'm making my first steps towards. Yes,
good,
absolutely.
And how are you going about that?
So I've approached the National Institute of Care and Health Excellence, which is the abbreviation is NICE. That's the government organization, and I'm awaiting the response.
Good. So you are moving and shaking the medical world.
Of course, yes. And at the same time, I think it's important to mention, Freda, that there is a lot of scientific research already done over the years that shows beneficial effect of the currents that are used in the Zenni Electrostimulation method, which is the diadynamic current and galvanic current, on many serious chronic health conditions, from meningitis, ADHD,
really,
cerebral palsy, post-stroke symptoms for people to recover quicker, even cerebral palsy as well.
Surely there must be a dossier somewhere, a file of all of the evidence and case studies, as I've already mentioned, that will make this much more plausible, I guess, because from what you've told me, the medical profession see it as a side cure as opposed to something that they would incorporate into the mainstream. But, there must be some element of interest in in what you're doing, Jowita.
I hope so, because
So do I.
Because some of my clients, I usually suggest to people to have, let's say, MRI scan done before they come to me, on what the current stage of their health or this particular condition that they have is, or blood test done or ultrasound done. And as it is evidenced back in Poland, women who had problems, let's say, with the thyroid and having an ultrasound done before the treatment, the holistic treatment, and then 6 months later after the treatment, we can compare the before and after, and the results are just astonishing.
Incredible. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing, the case studies that come from you. How much there's a cost to everything without sounding very blunt, but how much does this cost if somebody wanted to come and have your treatment? Is it affordable? Is it something that obviously the NHS may eventually look at, but how much do we need to be spending on this treatment?
So one session is £375, and that's once a month for no more than 12 sessions in general or on average.
So 375 per session?
Per session, yes. And usually it's once a month.
Once a month?
Yes.
So, and is it like a course of 12, or do you stop, for example, if after 3 the results are?
Usually after 3, you won't have, people can feel better, clients feel better, and let's say the symptoms are gone, but they need a little bit more or few more sessions before the results are for much longer period of time. And that happened to one of my clients who got very excited. The symptoms were gone. She was doing fine, but that she had only 3 or 4 treatments, and sadly the condition came back again. So I usually suggest, as it is suggested by the inventor of the treatment, that you need to have a series of 10 to 12 sessions. And that's, again, on average. I'm not saying this is exactly the case per every client, because some people are different. Like me, for example, I needed to have a few more of those treatments. But on average, it's not something that people need to carry on for the rest of their lives. And that's the beauty of it.
Well, that's good. And how do you think the Yorkshire Businesswoman Network can support you in this? Obviously, you are a member, and you have been for almost a year now, which is brilliant. How do you feel that our network can support you and get the word out more?
Absolutely, get the word out more, because it's something new, something that was only introduced to the UK last year. So people don't even know about it. And thanks to one of the women who is also a member of Yorkshire Businesswoman, Claire Kenny, I was featured in Yorkshire Evening Post, Yorkshire Times.
Brilliant.
And a few other outlets as well.
Good.
And that's thanks to you, Freda, who introduced me to Yorkshire Businesswoman.
You see, I told you it would, get the word out, definitely.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
Something that we need to be screaming from the rooftops. And I know that the network is a sea of hands that support others joining. Well, Jowita, that was very, very insightful, and something that I think everybody should know about at some point in your life. We all have health challenges, but knowing that there is an alternative is very reassuring. And how do we learn more? How do we find you, Jowita?
Just pick up the phone, or just perhaps look at finding me at Yorkshire Businesswoman.
Brilliant.
And if not, just type my name in Google and I will pop in.
Jowita Penkala.
Correct. Or just go on LinkedIn or on Instagram.
Brilliant.
All my social media are under my first and last name.
Fantastic. And I know you've got a feature coming out in the next magazine, so that's also very helpful. Brilliant, Jowita. Well, thank you so much for that. And Very, very interesting story, Jowita. Thank you for that. Really appreciate it. And I wish you all the best moving forward.
Thank you so much,
You're
Freda,
very
for your
welcome.
time. Thank you.
This is the Yorkshire Businesswoman podcast. To join the Yorkshire Businesswoman Network and find out more, visit our website, yorkshirebusinesswoman.co.uk, or find us on Instagram or LinkedIn. This podcast was produced by This Is Distorted.